Randall Sullivan and Indre Viscontas, the hosts of Miracle Detectives, are here. And Randall, you say that you actually experienced a miracle. What happened?
Well, I was officially a war correspondent in Bosnia, but I was there really, I think, to make my way to a village called Medjugorje, which was a reported site of many miracles, and had become known as the Peace Center in Bosnia. It was the one safe place during the war. Series of events put me in the home of one of the religious visionaries who was at the center of the whole thing. I got into a contentious conversation with her because I didn't believe. I wasn't raised with
religion. You had no religion? No?
I was raised in a very irreligious family. So basically she threw me out. And because I'd been there for a number of days and I hadn't gone to the sacred mountain, I wouldn't say that I believed, and she told me, go until you know what you believe. So I actually stormed out of her house in a near fury, blistering hot day, but I found myself walking toward this mountain, the Mountain of the Cross, which is sort of the central feature of Medjugorje. And I started climbing it. Nobody else was crazy enough to be out on a day that hot, so I was climbing by myself. Got not very far, maybe less than a quarter of the way up the mountain, when suddenly I noticed that it was getting dark and cold, and there was this massing of clouds right over me, right over the mountain. I mean, I could look 300 yards to the side, and it was still sunny. This thunder and lightning storm just erupted on top of me, and it was the most intense thing I think I've ever experienced. The lightning was striking so close that I felt I could feel the heat, and I had this overwhelming sense of, okay, I guess there really is a God and he's about to give it to me. Because I just took it so personally. So I started bracing myself for destruction, thinking, should I turn back? And I decided, no, I'm just going to keep going and see what happens. I got just a little ways further. The mountain is in stages of the cross. I turned a corner and I started hearing this singing in French. And there were a group of nuns kneeling beneath this cross singing. I didn't think there was anybody else on the mountain, again, who would be out there when it was 100 degrees. But so I felt so encouraged by their presence that I walked up and joined them, and for the very first time in my life, got down on my knees and prayed. And I just felt very comforted by them. So I continued up the mountain with them. When they'd stop at one of the stages of the cross, I'd stop and kneel and pray. And I felt myself shifting. Something was happening.
How did you even know how to kneel and pray if you came from such an irreligious family?
Well, I'd seen people in movies.
People in movies pray.
And I actually always had a little bit of curiosity, unlike anyone else in my family. I mean, I had gone to a few church services just out of...
So this experience transformed you?
Well, what happened next was, I got to the top of the mountain, surrounded by these nuns, and suddenly I just had this... I burst into a laugh. I realized, yeah, there is a God, but he isn't angry with me. He's just trying to get my attention. And I went into, I don't know what sort of state it was, just a very calm state. And this, especially when this young woman showed up suddenly. I assumed she must have been with the nuns, but I hadn't seen her. And she laid a cloth over my shoulders and put a hat on my head. And I just felt this immense sense of peace and really lost kind of consciousness of my surroundings for just a little while. And then suddenly I noticed the sun was out, it was warming up, I was drying off, and there was no one there. So I ran up and down the mountain looking for these nuns, couldn't find them. There was a cafe at the bottom of the mountain. I asked... So
did you imagine the whole thing?
No, they were real to me. And they were real in my experience. Certainly people have suggested you hallucinated. I hallucinated.
That you hallucinated.
I don't believe that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a lead-in, and then I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Colonel Gunther. We were in a state of readiness, hoping and listening, as many people throughout the world were, I think, about the safety and security of the young captive. And while he was in there, we were anxious to get the opportunity to go in and help. So early this morning, very early this morning, we heard over the radio that contact had been made with him by an airborne platform, and we were told by the Commander-in-Chief of Allied Forces South to get ready to launch a package to recover him, given what he considered to be a small window of opportunity.
And we held at sea for the next 45 minutes as we assembled all of our support aircraft and put the entire package together. At 05:45 we pushed inland, and the flight inland was approximately an 80-mile flight. We got into the objective area, held about 10 miles off, pushed our Cobras in. They located Captain O'Grady. Once we had determined exactly where he was on the ground, they were kind enough to drop a smoke grenade right on his spot. We flew on in with the two CH-53s, landed, disembarked, picked him up, and we flew on back. I think that's a quick summary of exactly what happened.
Did the Marines ever disembark from the
The Marines did, in fact, disembark. We disembarked one of the two helicopters, and we brought in 23, I believe, Marines on that particular platform.
23
Came in, shook everybody's hand that was there waiting for him, said thank you very much, and we took him down to medical, to the treatment room, checked him over real well.
How did he seem to you?
He was hypothermic. He was a little hypothermic. He was shivering because he was cold. He was wet. He was tired, but other than that, alert and certainly very happy to be where he was.
Did he tell you how he'd be living, what he'd be living on?
We asked him, trying to get an idea of how dehydrated he might have been, what he'd been eating, specifically if he'd been drinking any of the water from streams and so on, because that might have presented a problem. And that's when he said, when the water that he brought with him and the food he brought with him was done, it said, I've been eating bugs and grass and drinking rainwater.
It's absolutely great. Get Scott home. Come on up.
Thank my family, thank all my friends, everybody in the United States, all the NATO countries. When I was out there, I knew you were all there behind me. I could hear you, and I knew it, and I knew that everything that could be possibly done was being done. I had no doubt in my mind about that. Got a lot of respect for everybody that serves in uniform, either in the United States or other NATO countries or allies, and I appreciate everything you did to get me back to be standing here at Aviano.
When he goes down, as a flight lead, your wingman is actually a part of you. You're a teamed element, and when you lose your wingman or he gets shot down, a part of you goes with him, and that stays with him the whole time.
And it has always been dangerous flying over the top of Bosnia-Herzegovina, and that has not changed as a result of anything that happened over the last week. It has always been like that, and we have tried to take every precaution to protect our air crews who fly in that environment. There are no assurances from any sides that our aircraft will not be targeted. and particularly from the Bosnian Serb side, who have actively targeted our aircraft since the beginning of this operation.
Hasn't been approval of a mission to take some of those SAMs out.
In the case of Scott O'Grady's shoot down, they were in an area where we did not suspect that they had a SAM system. So, in my personal opinion, is they intentionally set a trap and sprung it, and we have lots of indications that that was the case.
Good morning.
I did a lot of praying out there, and I did a lot of soul searching.
I actually felt I could hear Scott, and he was saying to me, Mom, keep the faith. Keep the faith.
Basher 5-2 was Scott's call sign.
Basher 5-2, this is Basher 1-1. You're loud and clear.
Oh, I mean, you just wanted to scream. You know, you had every emotion rushing through your body.
Copy that, you're alive.
Here you are, dead to the outside world for 6 days. You know that now the cavalry is on the way.
Within hours, a team of 61 Marines was flying across Bosnia to attempt a risky daylight rescue.
We were briefed on them. The president was, I was. But in a case like this, you don't want amateur opinions when professionals are doing their job.
Clinton and Lake stayed up late into the night, keeping tabs on the mission.
It was very daring, but we were convinced that had a real chance of success.
It was about midnight in Washington, D.C. when the rescue team reached its target.
I look up and I see a United States Marine Corps helicopter breaking over the horizon out in hostile territory there to save my life. I would never, for as long as I live, ever forget that moment.
Okay, talk to me. We're coming out.
Scott came out of hiding and sprinted to the chopper.
To see him running through the brush with his pistol in his hand, making his way to the aircraft, it's not a scene that I'll soon forget.
The rescue team came under fire as they flew O'Grady away to safety and his 15 minutes of fame.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Military brass began briefing the press on the good news before Scott's helicopter even landed.
There may be some new information regarding the F-16 pilot who was shot down over Bosnia.
We have picked up the pilot that was shot down on the 2nd of June.
A great day for the O'Grady family.
I think instantly all of us thought, that's one hell of a story. We'd like to do it.
A downed U.S. pilot's dramatic story of survival.
On June 10th, after 2 days in the hospital, Scott relived his harrowing adventure for reporters.
I did a lot of praying out there, and I did a lot of soul searching.
I actually felt I could hear Scott, and he was saying to me, Mom, keep the faith. Keep the faith.